This episode of The Lab Inside the Game Industry is brought to you by Midwest Games. Live from New Jersey, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Green Bay, Wisconsin. This is The Lab. With your alchemists, Angel Guevara and Greg Posner. Tonight's special event, Do I Need a Publisher? With Chris Klimecky from Midwest Games. And Lab News with Cassandra Liu. Tonight on The Lab, Inside the Game Industry.
It is the day for you. Welcome to another wonderful episode of The Lab. We are once again joined by my amazing co-host, Cassandra Liu. Cassandra, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good to see you, Greg.
Yeah, we had a nice break last week. Did you do anything with your time and enjoy the time off?
Well, you know what I'm gonna work on when I'm time off on the game. But yes, doing really great. Thanks for asking. How about you?
It was nice. It's I think a lot of us have had a post GDC hangover for a couple of weeks, trying to catch up on work, trying to catch up on everything. So it's always nice having a couple of extra minutes back in your life to either sleep or do whatever you need to do to catch up to all your work you get,
Mm-hmm.
And we are also joined here in the previews here by our guest, Chris Klimecky. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hello. Doing great. Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's great to be here.
Yeah, Chris here is representing our sponsor. A big shout out to our sponsor of tonight, Midwest Games. They offer, we're going to dig deep into this, but they offer a lot of publishing options, whether it be shadow publishing or publishing. If you've seen anything on LinkedIn recently, you've seen a lot of people talking about publishing recently. I think this has been like the post GDC conversation of mind of what is publishing? How am I going to get funding? What am I going to do entering the beginning of this year, right? So there's so much we're going to learn because I'm going to ask these very silly questions that probably everyone already knows the answer to but I want to learn this stuff. And we're going to answer all these questions that people in chat have as well. But before we do that, I want to talk about gaming because it was a huge week of news. And I'm curious, Cassandra, I know you've been anxiously waiting for this, but the Switch 2 was announced, and we haven't spoken since the Switch 2 was announced. Yeah. Are you excited?
I am, but I think I'm getting a mixed feeling. I definitely love a lot of new design. Pretty excited about the little bit techie details, but also I'm thinking about the new the business model and the pricing. And then also, in the US is it's still a mystery about the pre-sale and everything. So I'm still going to observe from a distance.
Yeah, it is going to be really interesting with the pricing. I mean, the pricing of $449 was announced either the same day or right after the tariffs were announced. Then you get the negative feedback of everybody in the who's upset about the price of the console, which I don't feel like the price for the hardware is that bad. I can understand people being upset about the price of a game going up. And now then we hear that the pre-orders are going to be delayed, as you mentioned. And now I just read a few minutes ago that Nintendo's maybe rethinking their pricing. I think they're just saying that to cool people off. But it was a lot of news. And I'm curious if anyone in the chat, while we're talking about this, are you going to get a Switch 2? Are you going to be lined up on launch day? Are you going to be cautiously waiting? Are you just ignoring it completely? Chris, are you a Switch player?
I'm not, but as a fan, it's super cool to see, new hardware and new games, for sort of the future, the new future to come. I always look at it from a developer publisher lens as well, and Nintendo's always difficult there. So I kind of also take these kind of announcements with we'll get there eventually. Like Nintendo's always a slow roll.
When you're in the role of a publisher, you look at probably console announcements a little differently, right? It's like, hey, all right, we're going to eventually want to start putting games that potentially on that system, right? You have The Life of Babu, right? That's coming out. And like, do you start talking to any of your studios or people who are creating games? Talk about, hey, are you looking at the Switch 2? Do you think it's probably too soon to be thinking about that?
It's way too early. Yeah, Nintendo historically, doesn't support a lot of indies early on. They barely support second party. So, I mean, it's just the way Nintendo is. They support first party first, and their major partners first. So, if anything, we have developers coming to us going, "Yeah, we want to be on Switch too," and we're like, "That's not going to happen." Like, let's think of other things first, and maybe get there eventually.
Yeah. Was there anything particular, Cassandra, about the announcement that got you excited, or overall just a meh type of thing for you?
For me, I don't have strong feeling like either way, just because I seeing on the console how little things change. Like for example, the screen, and then how it get bigger screen, and then still like is it thinner? Like I forgot the detail. And then
Yeah.
there are lots of improvement on the console itself. Also have the microphone and everything. I'm watching this. It's like I'm kind of imagining how it works, right? So I think it might be very interesting when the developer when they develop new games, they consider those like new features and then think about creative way to make game fun. But right now, maybe I'm like a little bit lacking of imagination there. So it's not a math for me, but it's not a yes, I'm gonna get it like right now, like that
Yeah.
type either.
It's funny. There were some announcements that I feel like I just completely missed, and then I know someone that actually went to the event. So, to your point, there's a new feature called the Game Chat, which is basically their online party system, and you can support USB-C cameras. I think they have their own accessory for it. So, to me, Nintendo's always been like the lagging one in the industry, but it kind of is fine for them because they know their gameplay, they know their audience, they know their loop. It's this funny thing where Sony and Microsoft create the most powerful system known to man, right? And you can create any type of game you want for it. But Nintendo plays it a little simple, but I think their games show that they put that love and care into it. You see, and I think every publisher, and Chris can comment on this maybe too, like once you get those characters, those titles, right? Like it almost worries me that they're the one putting the price at $80 and $90 for a game, because people will still buy Nintendo games, I think, at that price. You're not going to get Zelda on computer at some point, right? So, if Nintendo is the first ball to drop and say, hey, this is the case, then GTA 6 is going to come out and be like, you know what? We can do that too. And every other game is going to do that. I'm sure publishers are probably excited, like, all right, the price of games are going up. But we're also entering just a weird financial place in the world to see what happens here.
For sure.
Yeah. There were some more gaming announcements that were going on. I guess first off in the audience, let's take a look at the chat here. There's a few people here. We got OG Tamagotchi's first time chatter. Welcome to the show. Kat Craig has been coming in. Kat, thank you for joining us again. I hope your post GDC is going well. Kyle Quaid is here. Sword Brother Soros, Evans Mine. Welcome back, everybody. I'm curious. Oh, look at that. We have people who are investing in the Ally ROG 7. There's a little Steam Deck competitors that can run more than 40 frames per second. That is a good call out. But I'm curious, are you not going to buy, or any real reason you dislike the Switch 2? Let us know in chat. I'd love to hear the reasons why you're not a fan of it, other than paying full price for the game again. There's also been a lot of rumors about different games coming out recently. So the first one, I don't think is as much as a rumor, and I don't think these are your types of games here, Cass, but Marathon is going to finally be teased and shown. Do you know much about Marathon? Is that not your I know it's not your jam, but do you know about it?
I'm not following on that front, and that's not my type of game. But Greg, shoot for it. Is there any like news? Like, let us know.
I will say, Chris, do you know anything about Marathon, or kind of?
I'm going to date myself here, but like I was the original Marathon player on Max back in the mid 90s. I love Marathon. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. I mean, Bungie's been doing Space Marines for 30 plus years. So I have to imagine it's going to be pretty cool. But yeah, I look forward to seeing what what they do with it and where they head with that whole universe.
Yeah, I don't think Monday is here. Monday is a frequent visitor and friend of the show, and he worked on Marathon, and he always kind of teased things out here. But I
Nice.
think Bungie needs this, right? This is kind of like they're putting all their eggs in this basket. So it'll be interesting to see if it does succeed. So it's going to be some sort of
their next big thing. Yeah.
It's got to be, right? And then do you think that comes out? I mean, that's so Bungie's owned by Sony now, right? Do we assume this is cross console? Would it be a safe thing to assume, or you would assume that? Or does anyone who's listening know if Bungie will release Marathon on Xbox? I'll be really bummed if they don't.
Don't know where they are with that at this point. They've always, wanted to do more cross-platform. So, it's been sort of their aim for a lot of years, but then they've, sort of switched sides on that and switched different owners that had different opinions as well. So we'll see.
Yeah. Taking a look at some of our, look at some of the audience chat here, right? We're bummed the LCD screen seems to be worse than the current OLED. Yeah, I feel like LCD was known for a little bit now. The magnetic Joy-Cons are a dumb idea. They do look cool though, and I feel like they're very important. Like, ooh, it's magnets now. It's a game changer, but they are still the old style thumbsticks, I heard. So eventually, stick drift will come back, and we'll break it at some point, as OG Tamagotchi here is talking about. Let's see. I got to learn how to check LinkedIn chat as well. See if anyone's talking on LinkedIn. Sorry if I'm ignoring you, but let's talk about some of the events that we have coming up. Oh, Marathon is confirmed to be released on Xbox. Thank you, Sword Brother Soros. I will be playing it, Cassandra.
Awesome.
I can't promise you I'll be good at it. I probably will not, and I'll probably rage quit pretty quickly because that's what I do. But I am excited to play it. Let's talk about some of these events that are coming up. Don't know how quickly we do these little. Oh, here we go. Spring into your new gaming career. That is going to be a show coming up next week with Amir Satvat. He's got a huge community. Everyone knows Amir. He won the Game Award for Game Changer, I think it was. But he will be talking about how you get that next career. What are you doing? What are you looking? What should you be looking for? What types of roles exist? Who's hiring? There's so many questions. Gaming's starting to slowly find its feet again and hiring again. So join us next week. It's going to be a lot of fun with Amir. He's going to share his love, his knowledge of the industry, and help you find your next gig. We also have a special event coming up with Raven. You might know Raven. They are in charge of Call of Duty. We will be sending some lab team members to go check out their studios. We will be filming live. Yeah, there you go, Sandra. I didn't know if we were just throwing it out there. You want to talk about it? You want me to keep talking about it?
Well, you can talk about it, but I'm just saying that I'm super excited. It's going to be a special form, and it's going to be live. We're going to tour around Raven, right? Like I'm super excited about that. But we are also bringing the footage. If you can make it to live, we're bringing the footage to one of the lab episodes, and we can watch it together.
We can watch it together. We can see Cass play some Call of Duty with the creators of it and see how she holds up. After that, Cass will be joined by our producer, Patrick, at the Green Bay Blizzard game for Game On, an event that is for kids, to teach kids about the technology and the industry. That's one of my favorite subjects about gaming, is being able to educate younger audiences and how to get into the industry, the excitement of it. There's going to be a whole bunch of cool companies there. Midwest Games will be there, so you'll be able to see some of the Midwest team members there. And again, just first of all, you got football, you got video games, you got hanging out with kids and playing with technology. It's going to be a fantastic event. So be sure to be, if you're in the Green Bay area, check that out. And we'll also be streaming parts of that as well live on the Labs channels. I guess that's it. We went through all the events. Do we have a video we want to show off? right. Thank you. So again, check out the Green Bay Blizzard game and find Midwest, find the lab, find Alchemy Labs, find Cass with
Yeah.
fingers on the moon. Everyone will be there. Check it out. Now, Chris, I would love to start grilling you on a million questions about producers.
Right on. I'm ready. I'm
All
ready.
right.
Hit me,
First
Greg.
off, welcome to the lab. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. You've never thrown a guest into the gauntlet right out the gate,
Oh,
and you did great.
first time for everything.
I
Happy
was
to.
going to say, at some point we're going to ask him about his musical career because we're going to do that. So I think he's ready for just being put on point. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Kind of who are you? I think you're head of production.
Sure. So yeah, start with that. So head of production, chief project officer at Midwest Games. So what does that mean? It means that I take care of all our projects and developer relations and making sure that not only we have the best quality, but that all of the various pieces of the puzzle for making sure a game has the best chance of success possible are coordinated and in place, and both the strategic side as well as the tactical side is taken care of. And we'll get into some of those details here in a little bit about what those individual pieces are and what they mean and how they affect different folks. But yeah, I'm in charge of making sure projects are shippable, best quality possible, and that they get out the door with the best chance of success possible.
I love it. And for our audience, mostly for me, right? I remember growing up and, you see developed by, published by, developed by, published by. What is the difference?
Oh yeah. So this really is getting into the heart of it here right off the bat, which is to say, I think there is, a lot of education needed in the industry today. It's a sort of a weird time in the industry, and a lot of people coming at the games industry from different angles and with different insights and perspectives. That's great. But some of the things that we sort of took for granted in terms of what developer and publisher roles were in the past, perhaps, has gotten a little muddied. People sort of have different ideas about it. So one of the things that I've taken on, sort of grabbed the mantle and running with is helping to educate folks about the value of publishing and what publishing does or should bring to the table, right? I think even some publishers have some different ideas of what publishing is. And so I do take a little more traditional, if you will, approach, just because I've been on both sides of the fence, right? And I've worked with various publishers from the development side, even to the point where really great relationships at Surreal Software ended up being acquired by Midway. At Harebrained Schemes, same thing with Paradox being acquired by Paradox, and just understanding from the developer side how much value a publisher can bring and what all of that entails, right? And so when I'm on the publishing side, I try to sort of bring the same thing, oh my gosh, there's so much value and it's such an important role. I think some people sort of skip over it sometimes or miss some of what should be done, what could be done to really help give games and give developers the best chance of success possible. For example, I think a lot of people equate publishing with releasing, right? Something that happened very late in the cycle. Other people might equate publishing with just funding and marketing, right? So just a couple of pieces. So I think one of the things that we'll dive into more in depth here, and try to break up the conversation, not just make it one big rant here at the beginning, but there's a lot more to it than that, and there should be a lot more to it than that. So if you're a developer looking at and talking with different publishers, you should be grilling them about what do they think publishing is, what strategic and what tactical pieces do they bring to the table, right? Because they aren't all equal and they don't always mean the same thing. So that's one point of getting on the same page and alignment about what the expectations are that I think you just need to be having more conversations about these days, because it's not always a default understood thing.
Yeah, I think that's really great how you put that. It's funny, as you're telling that story, I think of it like a school dance, right? You like, yeah, a publisher wants to ask you to work together, but at the same time, you should be asking the publisher, like, to your point, what services are you going to offer to me? Where do I need help? Is it safe to say that you should be looking for publishers that can help fill in the gaps of what you are not best suited to do?
Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it. Different developers bring different things to the table as well, even in the publishing realm. And even if they don't know it or don't, think of it as that, right? It might be that they do release management really well, or they might have a community manager and do their social media well, or whatever the case may be. They may not even think of those as publishing activities, but not all developers do have all the pieces. And more likely than not, being focused on developing the game, you are missing a lot of the other pieces. And so really thinking through where partnerships and where, just different potential publishers and other partners can fill in those gaps of areas that would really elevate your, ability to release a successful game.
So I have a few questions. I'm not sure of what best direction to go. And Cass, before I take over this entire conversation, if you have a question, please feel free to throw it in, or just be a fly on the wall and take it all in.
No, I do have question, but I will saving those questions like down the line, right?
Okay.
But I really love how Chris explained the role of publishing, because as indie dev, like at the beginning, like, I also have the same question. Then later I do realize like publishing is a, multi-function. Like they provide lots of different service, and they fill the gap of different area. And then to know that while we're developing it, and then when we step by step closer to releasing the game, I think, like we're clearer on the role, like which service do we need, right? Which side we're lacking of. So yeah, thank you, Chris, for the great explanation.
Yeah, and that's an interesting way of putting it, Cass, because often developers think about it too late, quite honestly, because it's not ideally just an end of the cycle set of activities and services, right? The earlier you can be thinking about how publishing strategically, having the pieces of release management and platform relationships, and how are you going to do your QA and your localization and playtesting, right? That's not something you want to wait until the end. Like, these are all things that a publisher can help with early on, that I think a lot of, especially smaller developers, just sort of, they get so caught up in just developing the game, making the game, that sort of bring your head up and like, oh, really think about marketing now, and it's like, and that's all you get, right? It's like, there's not a lot else to be done. And in fact, I saw, even just this morning, someone go, some publishers these days, all they're doing is taking your build and putting it on Steam. And I went, like, that can't be all that you're getting out of a publisher, right? Like, that's really missing out on so much that publishing can bring. And just look, there, like I said, there's tactical pieces to this, and sort of day-to-day activities, working on your Steam store, doing play tests, giving you feedback, helping with milestone definitions, and sort of specific points of evaluation, coordinating with vendors, coordinating with platforms, etc. But there's a lot of intangible, right? There's a lot of like problem solving, and just having an experienced partner to help you through the many challenges of navigating game development and events, and should we go to this event? How to spend your precious dollars, carefully, and on the things that are going to give you the most value. When to do, events, like, Steam has lots of events, GOG has lots of events. Like, when do you do these on the different platforms? Building wish lists, right? Building a community. Like, there's a bunch. And actually, I should go through, like, I think of it in 3 buckets, right? And maybe this will help sort of define that a little bit. I always like to start with the production bucket, not only because that's sort of my thing, but as I said earlier, people tend to miss that. And I think it's such a high priority. I've had such great relationships, being on the dev side with my, counterpart publishing producers at those companies I mentioned, and more. Done this with Microsoft and Wild Tangent and a bunch of others. And it's like that production piece that helps navigate and advocate for you as a on the dev side, and can be both a shield, from topics that you don't have to deal with, to really getting in there and taking things off your plate, like dealing with those platforms, like dealing with vendors on the QA side, and setting up your Jira even, right? And getting all those tactical pieces in place, as well as all the problem solving production items, right? I get very involved with helping with milestones and making sure that folks have a schedule and scope versus capacity that's actually going to make sense, right? That the math actually adds up and you're not over scoping. You're going to hit your dates, things like that, because all of those also affect coordination with the marketing team and platforms, et cetera, right? It all affects each other. So having coordination and advocacy and feedback on the publishing side helps tremendously in navigating those challenges. So that's the production side. Then, of course, marketing, right? But there's lots of pieces to marketing. There's the PR, social media, community building, whether that's Discord or many others, Reddit, your Steam community, etc. You've got paid media, which can be all kinds of different advertising, shows and events, right? Bundles and other partnerships with groups that can help market and give, bring your game to a wider audience. Marketing plays a role in all of those pieces and can do, more or less of any of them depending on your budget. And again, most dev teams don't have a lot of capabilities in those areas. They might have a community manager or might have a social media manager, right? So that usually is a big gap. Like, I don't want to, by any means say that marketing is not important to the formula. They absolutely are. They're just usually, that's the thing that people think of first, right? Other than funding. And then the third bucket is biz dev. And that's something that, again, most developers don't have a lot of, deep industry connections and perhaps alternate ways of funding, various platform deals and things that you might not think of. For example, we've done really well in doing deals with Amazon. Our CEO, Ben, came from Netflix. We've been, we're just constantly talking with Netflix. Jen, our head of marketing, was previously at Crunchyroll, so talking with them, right? We've got some inside discussions with lots of different platforms. We've been talking a lot with smart TV platforms, all kinds of interesting stuff going on there. So it's being a part of a portfolio of advocacy and being a part of those kind of discussions that can actually, make a huge difference in your end, revenue and results that doesn't necessarily show up in like Steam sales and things like that, right? So that biz dev angle is a, it's one of those, you can't promise anything, but you can be part of conversations that you wouldn't necessarily, be a part of otherwise, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, sorry, I just want to add a comment here before Greg goes into the question. I just thought, Chris, you just mentioned the, like the service in 3 bucket. I think for me, like when I hear about this now, I know about what publisher can provide. But when I first started, I didn't even know that there are those areas that the publisher can provide those help and service. And then, like and then is like I also have like the different understanding of relationship back then and now I'm thinking more like a strategic partnership. We want to win-win for both sides, so we definitely work together, right? But like it's interesting, so definitely those information are extremely helpful for people who don't know about this yet, right? So Greg, sorry.
No, please, that's
Yeah.
perfect, because I want to build on that a little bit, and I think it's important. I think it's great. So just want to make sure we cover. So Ethan asked a question on LinkedIn, just what's the biggest advantage of a publisher than indie developer? And I think that was that answer there, right? You have 3 buckets. You have production, you have community and marketing, and you have biz dev, right? And I think probably the best way you can take a look at it is that, and correct me if I'm wrong at any point, Chris, is that the publisher basically acts as a consultant as well to understand where you are and what you're doing and help give you those feedback that you may not get, as Cass was saying, right? Like you don't know what you don't know. And how do you figure this stuff out? Well, you talk to people who are experts in the industry. You talk to these people who have done it and do it, right? If you're working together, they're going to point you in the right direction. And I think it's super important. So I got a question, but am I on track here?
Absolutely on track. I mean, I think the relationship with a publisher is a partnership that you don't get when you, for example, if you are doing it on your own and you just hire a PR agency, right? Or you just hire your own QA team, right? Or vendor. Like if you do those things individually, yes, they will perform those services, but they're not going to be a partner that actually connects the dots and works with you strategically to make good decisions and good timing decisions and good budgeting decisions, right? They're just going to do what you tell them, right? And certainly they'll give you expert advice as well. But there is something to the publisher partnership that I think does elevate the value of it beyond what you could do on an individual basis.
So my question then is, if I am an indie studio, when is the right time to start looking for a publisher? Because I feel like people are under the idea that if I shoot my shot too soon, I'm going to lose my chance to do anything. Is there a too soon to be looking? Is there too late to be looking?
I think you need to understand what your goal is in looking for a publisher. We haven't even talked about funding yet, right? But we can't ignore funding as a piece. And if you are looking for funding from a publisher, you want a publisher to invest in your project, then there is something to be said for waiting a little bit longer until you've got a really good playable prototype. You've really got your pitch solid, especially if you're sort of cold calling. If you have a relationship with people, and have it be an ongoing conversation where you're looking for feedback on your pitch and things like that, that can be a good conversation. I've certainly had plenty of folks that have come to me earlier, but with the intent that, we're just having a chat, want feedback on my pitch, want to know what you think about, a prototype. I go, okay, that's fine. Then give them the thoughts, but don't look for a deal, right? Don't look for a deal off of that kind of timing. You definitely these days, later, and when you've really got not only the playable at what I call vertical slice. I know some people have some different definitions of that, but something that is a small scope, really good demo. Let's just call it that, right? Small scope, but really nice demo that shows off, beautiful corner. So you've got, good look, good feel, but it's just not large scope. Like that's where you want your playable to be. And you want your pitch to not be long, not be extensive, but you want it to really show that you've got your act together and where you're going with the project from a design perspective. Your art direction, your production plan. Doesn't mean you're not open to feedback or to flexing or even saying, here's where we have where we want to change things, and we'd like feedback. Like, that's cool. That publishers want to help you. So don't be afraid of that either. But, have a pitch that really demonstrates, what you're doing, how you're going to spend the funds that you're getting, right? And that you're on track to have this be a successful project, and understand what you need from the publisher to help make it successful. So that's the funding part. There's a second part to this in terms of the how early question, and that's if you don't need funding, right? Then there is almost no too early, because we have people who, for example, one group that we're talking to is making some money off of Fortnite maps, right? Just call it an alternate funding source, right? And they want to use that money to fund publishing services for the game that they really want to, self-publish. Like, get to us early, right? Let's talk really early on. Not, and I know that sort of sounds like a sales pitch, like that's get to us early so you can pay us more. But it's more like, look, even if we're just advising and helping you through the process, and you don't want to spend money yet on the services, we can help set you up a lot better and advise on, again, how you're going to spend the money, how your timeline looks, what events you're doing, when to think about putting out a demo, if you're doing early access. Like, there's a bunch of decisions early on that a publisher can help with, regardless of their, if they're really deeply involved and tactically, functioning on your behalf or not.
So taking notes here. It's what I love to do. So, if you're looking for funding, you want to have at least a vertical slice, right? That's basically a demo of your game, or at least a playable portion of it, right? So you can get that idea. You need to have a good pitch, know your plan, know your direction, I guess, know your audience, right? Know exactly who you want to build this for. And if you're not looking for funding, kind of whenever you're ready to have that discussion, reach out so you can have that discussion. Still following here?
Yep.
Cool. We had a question in chat here. Is a publisher the end all be all, or are there other options out there for indies?
End all be all. I think of it this way. We look, it's a tough market out there, right? And at the same time, we've all heard of sort of solo dev breakthroughs or small team breakthroughs that have done it, if not completely on their own, right, with very, very little extra help or without a formal publisher. Like, it does happen. So is publishing the be all end all? No. What a publisher does is they're going to be a partner that will help you, again, navigate challenges, which there are a ton, and overall give you a better chance of success. It's sort of like every one of those different, if you think of each as an individual service, every one of those that you add to your, to your arsenal, if you will, the better chance you're going to have of, breaking through, or at least breaking even, right? You're going to have more opportunities and more, more chances to, if not get a breakthrough, at least get some revenue and get some opportunities to do some different things with your game. It just adds more possibilities to your game development journey.
One of the questions I had was, I've been seeing a lot of talk online that publishing needs to change. And I imagine a lot of this sparks back to the kind of games don't get distributed, like you mentioned, right? Some people think publishers just put your key on Steam or whatever and get it all set up for you, right? Why is the sentiment around publishing is that it needs to change?
Because a lot of people have gotten burned. I think there are, look, I can't speak for all publishers, right? Like, and I don't know all of the possible publishers that are out there, that devs talk to. I try to get a sense of what's happening in the marketplace and what types of discussions folks are having. There's no doubt that devs have gotten screwed. They've gotten, less than they expected out of the deal. Some of that is expectations out of whack, right? But some of it is publishers that don't follow through on their promises. So it's a lot of different situations, and I think certainly some publishers can give, it's a bit of spoiling the pot, right? Can give all publishers a bad name, but there's a lot of there's a lot of change that needs to happen, and I think devs being more educated, more just more smart about the publishing landscape, what questions to ask, make sure you're not going to publishers just desperate for funds. Like that's a recipe for bad decisions and for getting into relationships that aren't really going to benefit you. So there's lots of different stuff out there that is not not the way that I sort of describe publishing ideally. It's certainly what I and we at Midwest Games aim for. But even like, we're not perfect. We can't guarantee success, right? We can only be a good partner and follow through on our promises, do the best we can to open things up, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I think our relationships with developers would show like we're giving it everything we got every time, and I know plenty of publishers do, but some don't, right? And that's tough, and that sucks. I hate seeing that. And I'm obviously a big developer advocate. I want developers to do well. I want games to succeed, and when I hear stories of publishers, not acting in good faith, that bothers me, and I think accelerates sort of or amplifies the call for publishing needing to change.
This might be a tough. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Greg.
No, go ahead.
I didn't mean to. But because we were talking about the publisher need to change right now, because we know recently Midwest just adding the shadow publishing service. I'm curious that adding this service, is Midwest responding to the market reaction, or like what was the kind of like strategic thinking behind it, or is it more towards just in general that you feel like this model we can do an innovative model, or is it more like we're reacting to the current market?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cass. And it's certainly a reaction to the market, and it goes back to the funding problem. I think that's also part of what amplifies the need to change publishing and sort of change the publishing conversation. Is that a lot of publishers have pulled back from funding, including us. So that change in the marketplace of how games are funded, more VCs have stepped in. Kickstarter has sort of come back on the scene, sort of building off of what board games have done in the last few years. More groups are doing sort of what I described earlier with the Fortnite maps, sort of finding other ways of generating some cash. And they don't, and sort of the corollary to that is, don't want to give up rev share, IP rights, sort of some of the things that are part of traditional publisher deals. And so people who are in that situation, devs and even VCs themselves, who maybe have funded a whole portfolio of games, they can't get publisher deals at that point because either their rev share is tied up, or they just don't want to give up rev share and IP rights. And so there is a gap in, like, they still need publishing capabilities, right? Like that doesn't go away. All the things that I mentioned earlier, right? All those buckets, like that's still a needed, needed service for folks. And so, we have the capabilities, and we've talked to a lot of developers, and it's not for everyone. Absolutely understand that, but there is a they have the funding but don't have the publishing capabilities and don't want to build that themselves. It's tough to build those capabilities yourself. I mean, we spent, a year and a half and a good chunk of our initial investment money building Midwest Games as a capable full service publisher, right? And so I don't think most devs are interested in trying to recreate that, especially if they're doing a single release every, X years or whatever, right? Take advantage of a publisher that has a portfolio and the relationships already, et cetera. And, that's something that we can offer to those developers, VCs, and whoever, is coming to us, even other publishing groups, who need the flexibility of just, bringing in certain services at certain times, right? To work on their games, or, if they have a heavy schedule at a certain time of the year, that's something that we can offer to those different parties.
I think that's such a cool thing. I truly do. I think there's a lot of industry knowledge, when you're in the industry, right? And there's a lot of best practices you can point to when you're in the industry. These are just things you learn over time, and you just need to experience it, right? And I'm teeing this up for a question we got on LinkedIn, and it's a tough question, is how is this model priced? And I know we probably can't go into the numbers now, right? But is it based on the number of services you're consuming, how big the game is? Like, this is a great model, and maybe I don't want funding, but how much am I going to be spending on something like this?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that we put into 3 buckets. Another 3 bucket answer for you. So I don't know what it is with 3 buckets, but so be it. How it is. So there's the retainer for us to be your partner and advocate on the and get to know your project, help you with strategic planning and thinking. Some initial tactical things. That's usually the retainer is usually, the sort of main guts of first part of the relationship. And then as we understand, okay, these services, yeah, it is a bit a la carte, and we do bucket them to some extent, but think of it as a la carte. What you need at different times, we budget that out as a additional sort of Midwest team cost, right? If you're only going to use marketing, right, you're not paying for my production team, right? Like that kind of thing, right? And then the third bucket is for what we might call vendor or any external services. For example, the paid media, right? That would be its own, like, that could be a huge range, right? Some groups want to spend 10,000, some groups want to spend 100,000 on paid media, and influencers, right? I have actually left out influencers, but influencers are a big part, and they, often usually fall under the paid media heading. So that's a super wide range. On the production side, localization is a good example of, like, it can be a wide range. Are we going to do 3 languages? Are we going to do 10 languages? You're going to do voiceover? You're going to do just text and subtitles, right? That third bucket is a very flexible bucket for sort of the details of what we would then coordinate with vendors, individual vendors, and make sure that you have a pipeline for connecting the dots within all the other pieces of the game. But does that make sense then, the 3 buckets of paid services?
Yeah, I mean, right, you kind of consume what you eat, and basically as you go, right? I think it's a partnership, right? And I think you got to trust the process, right? I mean, I know some people are kind of scared of having to pay for publishing, but the access it gets you is really just the industry experts pointing you in the right direction, right? They all got to these positions by knowing what they know, right? So better than the blind leading the blind is having people that have been here before to do that for you.
Yeah, and it's flexible. That's the other thing that we try to emphasize, and we're happy to even help with pitching to other publishers, right, who may help fund you or whatever the case may be, right? It's like, we want you to succeed. We're gonna partner with you however is going to help the most and whatever budget can afford.
Appreciate that. And we are coming up on time here, and I think this has been extremely informational and as I love educational. But I do have one last question, is that you mentioned at one point you need to look out for people with bad faith, right? These is people that want to take advantage of you. Are there any red flags an indie studio can identify right away, or any, I guess I'm just going to stick with red flags, right? That they should be on the lookout for when speaking to a publisher?
Red flag is going to be more trust issues, right? I think you shouldn't just have one conversation with folks. It should be a longer set of conversations, right? Where maybe even you set up some small goals, right? And develop some trust on both sides, hopefully. But you'll find pretty quickly if someone's actually, going to be on your side or not, or if you're going to get lost in their email or whatever, right? And bad faith is not necessarily mean malicious. It can be, but also, I mean, just, are they going to be your advocate? Are they going to, be a trusted partner that can get things done? So I think, there are lots of yellow flags. Let me put it that way. I think that's more what you look for. And you're asking questions about, the types of things that we talked about today. Can they do those various things? What are their strategic ways of connecting those dots? Who do they actually have on board that can execute? How are they thinking about biz dev, right? Do they even have biz dev opportunities for you? And do they, some groups are only going to be focused on marketing. And that's where you go, well, is that all I really need? Like, do you actually do production? Have you released something on Xbox before? Because that's a massive bureaucratic mess. Sorry, Microsoft, but Xbox Partner Center is an absolute mess. And it takes my team days and weeks of iterating to get things on platforms sometimes, right? And any devs who have been through that, like, would you have rather been focused on your game or messing with Partner Center for bashing on Microsoft a little bit here? But it's like, it's true, right? And all the platforms are that way. It's not just Microsoft, right? Nintendo, Sony, those platforms, and even the other platforms no platform has great tools. Some are easier than others, but that's just one example of, like, is a publishing partner going to be in the dirt with you, and take some of that off your hands? Or are they just going to be, creating marketing content for you? And just sort of educating yourself about what past experiences, both in terms of the publishing projects as well as the team, right? What are their past experiences? What value can they bring? I was just talking to a group that has a game that has similarities, and they want to do a same, like, Kickstarter thing that I did with BattleTech, right? And so it was like, okay, that's interesting. That's a good fit. Like, you can actually use, or at least use me as a feedback person, right? To help you navigate, like, what those different steps of, dealing with the community and building that community that might already exist, and how can we tap into that? It's like, I've done that before, right? It's just an example of, like, okay, that's a fit. And maybe someone who has never done a Kickstarter before, but you really want to do a Kickstarter, like, okay, maybe that's not as good a fit, right? Or again, you sort of take the bulk of the yellow flags and sort of compare and contrast, right? You're never going to get 100% on anything, but I think that's where you do your due diligence and don't make fast decisions. Don't make decisions out of desperation, especially for needing funds. That's a recipe for a bad relationship.
All right, last question, I promise. Is one of the services offered a original soundtrack made by Chris?
Thank you. That someone might even suggest such a thing is very cool. I appreciate that. we can work out. We can work out the details. Sure, we can make that happen.
If you go on YouTube and look up Chris, you'll see he has done a number of songs for some of the different games that they have published. So they do rock, and at most events you'll see him running around with his guitar at some point. And I love to see it. I love the passion.
Well, I have to say, Fingers on the Moon are very proud to have Chris use our guitar in MDAP. So
there you go.
Very generous for letting me use the Fingers on the Moon guitar.
Thank you.
Before we do go, Chris, let us know where we can find you. Where can people learn more about Shadow Publishing, and how can they reach out?
Sure. So MidwestGames.com is sort of the main spot for getting information on our services and the games that we've done and are in progress. Myself, I point you to LinkedIn. I'm pretty moderately active there. I can't say very active, especially compared to CEO Ben, who's sort of LinkedIn superstar. But I try to be on there plenty and try to connect with folks and advise there. That's a good way to connect.
Awesome. I think we're going to post this in the lab afterwards, letting everyone know where they can find Midwest Games as well as Chris's information. Cassandra, you got anything?
Yeah. So sorry, Chris. I think this is another question, but I think in the comment area, we do have a last question for Chris, right? So just I think it's just personal. Like, what's the most difficult part of being a publisher?
Difficult part of being a publisher. Well, I am such a developer advocate. I want games to succeed. I especially want games that I know we have worked hard on, that I know are really good, that people will enjoy. I want them to succeed so badly, right? And take Metacritic for what it is, but we've gotten some really good scores on Metacritic. Really proud of our portfolio, and yet sales are still difficult in a lot of ways, right? And so I think that's the toughest part. Is like you working really hard, really good partnerships, want this to just blast out sales, and sometimes it just doesn't, right? So we try to stay positive. We try to just take multiple shots, try to think of it in terms of long-term relationships, do more of that biz dev, right? Continue to look for opportunities beyond just the Steam sales and things like that. And keep it rolling. But that's the thing that kind of breaks my heart sometimes is, I just wish more people would jump on this. It's so fun. I love it. And, obviously I think it strikes a chord. So, yep, there you go.
Awesome. Big shout out to Chris and Midwest Games. Thank you. Even bigger shout out to our community for asking questions. We had Brian, we had Ethan, Kat, Kyle, Soros, Evan, everyone else. Thank you so much for joining us. We are here to help get you informed, give you information. And Chris, once again, thank you so much. Cass,
it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.